Is your property cross-secured without you knowing it? Now, you might think your loans are standing on each individual property. There's one loan for each property. Everything is nice and contained. But buried somewhere in the background of your original set of loan documents, there might be one small section that says that your loans are actually cross-secured rather than standalone. So in this video, we're going to have a look at this small change and what it might mean for you later on down the track. Most likely when you go to refinance or when you go to sell, this one small change might make a massive difference to what you're going to need to do and the math and numbers for the sale or refinance. I'll talk you through cross-securitisation, what it means, and also standalone facilities. We'll have a look at the pros and cons for each and help to determine which one's going to be better for you. So by the end of the video, you'll know how to check if you are or do have cross-secured properties, and you'll also be able to know what you need to do to put things in a standalone structure. So what is cross-securitisation? Let's start with the basics. If you've got one or more properties combined together to secure a group of loans, that is what is referred to as cross-securitisation. Now, where do you find this? You find it inside your original set of loan documents in the security section, probably buried at about page 5 to 7. Now, what does it look like, or what is an example? So if you've got your home and investment properties all with the same lender, and you have security listed in your loan documents of your home plus your investment properties, and multiple loans listed on the same page, there's a very high likelihood that your loans were all done in a cross-secured structure. Now, the problem with this is if you decide to sell one of those properties or refinance one of those properties, you're not really selling or releasing one property in isolation. You're actually affecting the overall group of assets the bank holds and the overall group of loans that the bank holds. Now, what happens is this then forces not a complete release of security or a complete discharge, it forces a partial release of security or a partial discharge. Now, what happens then is that then goes back to the bank's credit department to decide if you're going to cherry pick one of the properties out, how can the bank then react to that? Can they force you to pay down some of the other loans? Can they force you to change the security or put more loans on other securities? All of this comes into play because essentially what you have agreed to is forever giving the bank control over the assets and the loans in your portfolio. Now, the alternative to this is what's known as a standalone structure. And under a standalone structure, each property has specific loans attached to that property. So you might have your home loan and an equity release, and then an invisible line, and then you might have your investment property and your investment property loan, and then another invisible line, and then your second investment property, and then the next investment property loan. Now, in a standalone structure, each kind of column or silo is exactly like that. It's siloed from your other borrowing. So if you sell the investment property, the only loan that you need to pay out with a full discharge is the investment property loan that is attached to that property. If you sell your home, you've got to pay out the home loan and the equity release loan. So in this structure, you have the control over your properties and your loans, and it's really clear for you to identify, if I sell that property and I pay the capital gains and I've got to pay out that loan, what is my cash that I'm going to receive at the end of the sale? Why does cross-securitisation even exist if it's such a bad idea for property investors? Well, because banks love it. It saves them time because they only have one set of loan documents. It saves them effort of calculating different loan to value ratios on different properties. They can literally just group all of your assets together and group all of your loans together. Now that also gives them a far greater degree of control because they've got one client with one asset group, with one lending group, and if you make any changes, the bank then gets to have their input as far as what they want to do with those loans moving forward. But although this is really great for a lender, it can sometimes be a massive headache for borrowers. And the major headache that it causes is, when is it in the life cycle of a property investor that property investors are most likely to sell? Of course, it's in retirement. Imagine if you had 5 properties when you get into retirement, you decide to sell 2 that you thought were unencumbered, but you find out that those 2 assets were used as security for your other loans. You've then got to go to the bank cap in hand with no income because you're retired and try and explain to them why you need to keep many hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of loans intact and available when you sell down some of your investment properties. It's not a great situation for a property investor to be in. But there are a few more downsides that we haven't even touched on yet, such as reduced flexibility. So I've seen it whereby someone will sell a property that doesn't perform very well, and the bank will then go and turn around and revalue all of your other properties to even determine if they're prepared to release that property from your portfolio. Imagine having sold a property and then the bank telling you, well, actually, that underpins other assets. You can't sell it. The next one is forced revaluations. If you've got 4 or 5 properties and you decide to sell the one on the end, then the bank will then revalue all of your other properties to determine if you can leave the remaining loans attached to them. And if you've got some of these properties that have performed badly, or maybe they're in areas that rise and fall, like tourism areas or mining areas, then the property that you're retaining that might bounce back in the future, they're going to look at the current low valuation today and then reassess your lending and what loans you can have outstanding on those other assets. The next one is equity traps. So every time you want to refinance one of your properties to get equity out, if that property has performed really well, but some of the others in your portfolio have not, the bank will reassess the valuations of every one of your properties to then determine whether you can get an equity release against your property that has performed well. And the last reason is the domino effect. If you do get yourself into a financial pickle, as we've always said with property investment, it's not, that you're in debt. You only have issues when you run out of money. So if you start to get yourself into financial hardship on one of the loans, you're actually in turn getting yourself into financial hardship immediately on all of your loans, because you are in default on a facility that secures every single one of your assets, which is not a great position to be in. So I've given you all of the bad news about cross-securitized. So is there any good news, and when should you consider it? To me, there is only 3 reasons I would ever consider doing it. So number 1, I really like my current lender. It's my first investment property, and it's simpler for me to get my head around this very first time if I use a cross-securitized structure. For some people, mentally, they just get their head around this very simple transaction if it's just done with one loan. And I get that. We can go back later on and we can, uncouple the debts, and you can move on with your investment property portfolio. So it is a very simple way to get started. That's probably one reason that you might consider it. The next reason you might consider it is sometimes you have a very good asset, and the property that you're investing in by most lenders might be regarded as somewhat of a poor asset. But for you, it's a diamond in the rough, okay? It might be a block of land in a category 4 location that no bank wants to lend on. It might be some form of student accommodation that no bank wants to lend on. It might be a multi-dwelling property that banks don't want to lend on because of the location. But if you offer to the bank to cross-secure it, then the bank is prepared to lend. Now, you might then be able to do something to that property that makes it a more palatable security for a bank in the future, so the vacant block of land, maybe we're going to build on top of it, and then we'll have a house to then offer as security. So long as you can see a way that you would get out of the cross-securitization, then it makes sense long term. Now, the last reason is sometimes there is just a much better deal put on the table if cross-securitization is offered to the lender. So I've sometimes done transactions where a client will have multiple securities in multiple areas. Some of them are like category 3 or category 4 locations. Some have quite high loan to value ratios. And when we pool them all together, we end up with significantly better lending options than we would if they were all as standalone facilities. The likelihood of this is very rare, probably happens less than 2 or 3% of the time, but there is some times when that kind of structure will work really well for a client in terms of saving them some dollars on interest or costs. So we've covered off cross-secured facilities. Let's focus on standalone facilities, why it might be better for you. The number one benefit is flexibility. You've got every one of your properties, you know exactly what's owing on it, you know if you sell it, how much money will go into your bank account, and you also know if you choose to refinance a property based on the valuation of that property, how much you'll be able to extract equity-wise to go and invest in something else. So the flexibility is at its highest when you have standalone facilities. The next one is simplicity and planning. You can compare each property that you've got. You can be with a different lender for each one. You can have each lender clearly identify what their rate, fees and charges are going to be, and you can more kind of apply common sense in the simplicity of looking at each individual property as a standalone investment. The next great reason to consider is the access of equity. If all your properties are standalone, one of them performs really, really well, rockets up in value, you can refinance that one property or do an equity release on that one property to get the deposit out for something else without the need to look at any of your other properties, complete any other valuations, or review any of your other loan facilities. And lastly, reduce risk. When you have your properties as standalone facilities, if one of your properties tanks and performs poorly, which we hope never happens, but sometimes it doesn't affect the rest of your portfolio. Doing one at the moment for a client where the property hasn't increased in value in 6 years. It was meant to, but it didn't. But that hasn't affected the rest of the portfolio. The client's still been able to go on and do other things. So how do you know if your properties are cross-secured? Well, there's a couple of ways that you can definitely do it. Number one, you can ask your bank or ask your broker how they set things up, or you can just reference your original set of loan documents from when you took out that loan. As I said before, flick through to page, say 6 or 7, under the securities tab, you will see all of the securities that are listed for that particular loan or group of loans. If you've got a whole heap of securities listed there, it's highly likely that you are cross-secured. So what to do next? So number one is don't panic. All of these structures can easily be unwound and fixed with time and process. Now, the way we usually fix this for clients is doing a refinance of all of the properties, splitting them up into standalone facilities, and either doing it with one or multiple lenders, depending on the client's preferences. Now, the key thing to this is don't wait. Don't wait until you're about to sell something before you go and check. Check now. The benefit of doing this earlier is it gives you the ability to refinance the loans in a structure that is going to suit your future goals. And if one of your future goals is selling some of your properties, you really want to action this sooner rather than later. So if you found this video useful, please hit the like and subscribe button. Now, if you have any other questions, please leave them in the comment section below. If you found this video useful, but you think maybe you want to take it one step further, below there is a link to our calendar. You can book in with either myself or my team. We can review all of your loans and let you know what we think might be the ideal structure for you moving forward to achieve your long-term goals.